Hello, ladies. Welcome back to the Financial Flourish podcast, where we talk about more than just your budgets and spreadsheets. We talk about you, your mindset, your history, your heart. I'm your host, Michele Pemberton, and today's episode is going to peel back the layers of something many of us struggle with in silence: the connection between money and self worth. If you've ever struggled to raise your prices, hesitated to ask for a raise, feel guilty about earning too much, or found yourself overgiving financially, then this episode is absolutely for you. Joining me today is a powerful woman who brings both clinical wisdom and soul deep compassion to the table. Dr. Monique Upton is a board certified psychiatrist specializing in both adult and pediatric psychiatry. Welcome back, Monique. So great to have you here.
Thank you, Michele. As always, I'm honored to be here and I'm excited to dive in because, this is a huge topic. So many women carry shame around money and we carry it silently. And today we're going to shine a light on that.
Yes, so last week we spoke about the power of visualization and money affirmations. These are some powerful tools that you can use to reset your mindset. But too often, you as women don't believe that you deserve more because you don't think that you're worth it. Today, we're going to talk about this issue. Now, before I get Dr. Upton to give us valuable information, I want to define what financial freedom is and what self worth is. We have defined financial freedom in previous episodes, and as I said before, it is not simply about being rich. Financial freedom is about having enough resources to live the life that you desire and control your money rather than being controlled by your money. Self worth embodies not just the financial success, but also your personal values, your skills, relationships, and your general well being. Now, we have to make a differentiation between self worth and net worth. Net worth is primarily about your money and your wealth. So now that we have those terms defined, let's start at the beginning. And we're going to have Dr. Monique Upton to tell us what is the connection between our self worth and how we relate to money.
Well, it's huge. From a psychological standpoint, our self worth, how we value ourselves, is deeply connected to the stories that we were told growing up. We've talked about that in several episodes. So, were we taught that we were too much for wanting more? Did we internalize that nice girls don't ask for raises or talk about money? The brain remembers that. Our limbic system, which is where our emotions are stored, can associate money with shame, fear, or scarcity if that was our early experience. And that's why today, even successful women can feel guilty about earning more or struggle to charge what they're worth.
Wow, now that's huge. So you're saying that our financial behaviors, such as undercharging, people pleasing with money, staying in our jobs even when we've outgrown it, may actually be symptoms of something deeper, deeper identity struggles. I have to admit that I can relate to some of that.
Right. We all can. And these are protective behaviors that are rooted in fear of rejection or not feeling enough.
So, I get this question from some of my clients all the time. I know I need to charge more, save more, or ask for more. So why don't I?
Well, it goes right to this root of self worth. As women, we're often raised to be caregivers, nurturers, helpers, not decision makers or wealth builders. So the message, even when unspoken, gets internalized. So the message is like, I'm valuable when I give, but not when I receive. And so the brain encodes that sort of as your identity. And so as we start stepping into higher earnings, or we have an opportunity where we need to ask for more, it can really trigger those deep feelings of feeling unsafe, unworthy, or even selfish. And it's not about financial literacy. It's really about giving ourselves emotional permission to ask for what we're worth.
So what you're saying then, Monique, is that someone can have the head knowledge about how to manage money, but if they haven't dealt with these internal stories that they've been told, that they can sabotage themselves.
Absolutely. It's like trying to build wealth with a leaky cup. So if your identity says, I don't deserve this, then no amount of strategy is going to stick because you're going to feel like you don't deserve it. And I want to point out it's important for everyone listening to know this is not your fault. These beliefs were modeled, absorbed, and they've often been passed down. And so oftentimes we're not really aware of them. But when we start to do that deeper work and we become aware of them, that's good because then we can change them. So that's the good
Yes.
news. We're always able
Yes.
to change.
Yes. I know we've gone through many episodes that talk about childhood messages that we've heard and seen, and also about shifting our financial identity. But can you remind us again, Monique, about some of the common money scripts that show up in our adulthood from the messages we've heard from our childhood?
Oh, absolutely. So here's a few. Okay. Number one, we can't afford that. That's something I know as a child when I'd be in the store with my mom. Everything I asked for, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. So even now,
I've
I
been
find
there
my
too.
right automatically. I can't afford that. And then I'm like, actually, I can. But then again, that goes back to that issue that we talked about of scarcity, and
Yes.
then that scarcity mindset. And then the other one, another big one is don't talk about money. That's rude. That's money, politics. Those are the things you're not supposed to talk about. And so,
Yes.
really, that gets into that whole issue of secrecy. Don't talk about it. You're not supposed to know and everything. So, if we don't talk about money, though, how do you know how to grow money? And how do you know how to ask for a
Exactly.
raise if you never talk with your colleagues about how much they're making?
And how much they should be making themselves.
Exactly. And so the other one, money doesn't grow on trees. I heard that a lot. It's little. And so, but if you think about it, trees replenish themselves.
Wow.
But when we
Wow.
have that whole thing of money doesn't grow on a tree, that addresses that whole issue again of lack, and that we're not going to be able to replenish our money.
Wow. I am guilty of that because I've used that. But,
Hmm.
I'm changing my language because, well, first of all, my children told me that money do grow on trees because money is made from paper. Go figure.
Okay. Well, they've got a point. They've got a point.
Yes.
Yeah, but I love what you say about changing your language about it. And that's key because when we change our language, we're changing our thought process behind it. So you're looking at it not from an issue of lack, but from a point of growth. How can I
Exactly.
grow and replenish more money?
Yes.
Another one is rich people are greedy. As especially for people who maybe you grew up and you didn't have a whole lot of things
Yes.
material, you didn't come from a wealthy family, and now you've made it through your hard work and your family support and everything, you have made it, and now you're in a position where you're making money. That can trigger this whole feeling of mistrust of the money, mistrust of
Yes.
growing wealth. And like deep down, we know that if you mistrust wealth, then wealth is not something that you're going to obtain. And when you hear these messages over and over again, whether directly or indirectly, your brain forms kind of what we call a money script, and it becomes part of your emotional operating system. And so, as you're going into, if you're a business owner and you're growing your business and you raise your prices, you know,
Yes.
those say all those money scripts come back, that influence how you make that decision. If
Yes.
you're moving up the corporate ladder and you're negotiating your salary, you're asking for a raise, those money scripts are going to come back. And so for women, there's also this gender overlay that affects that. So maybe you saw your mom defer financial decisions to your dad, or you've been praised for being low maintenance, and not a not a diva. You don't ask for too much. And so that just reinforces the belief that our value is tied to being less
Yes.
visible, less demanding, less expensive, and kind of
Wow.
yeah. And so, we think about it, we're taught not to dim our light in other aspects. But when it comes to money, and how we deal with money as women, oftentimes we're told that, yes, you need to make yourself smaller and
Yes.
have
Yes.
less needs. Yeah. And then the other one that I hear, and I know I'm very guilty of this, is I have to work hard for every penny. And I think I
Yes.
started doing it with my kid where I would be like, look, do you know how hard I have to work to earn
Exactly. I do
that? This
that
is what
too.
I have to do, you know?
Do you see how hard I work? Is what I
Right.
ask them.
Exactly. And so But one thing I didn't think about was how that narrative can create guilt around ease and rest,
Yes.
and a lot of women don't want to rest or take a vacation because you feel like you got to always be doing something productive. And more importantly, they feel like they have to always be there to take care of everyone else. And that is something that I actually dealt with last year. As we get to the end of the year with
Yes.
my job, I left vacation days on the table.
Wow.
And I left CME days on the table where I could have, instead of going to a conference, I chose instead, well, I'll just do some CME online. And
Wow.
again, it comes from that whole mindset of I have to constantly be working hard. And when I got to December, I realized, I had vacation days that I didn't use. And when the company tells you, we can buy those back from you at like 60%.
Oh wow.
A lower
No, that's
rate.
not financial flourish. That's not
Right.
financial flourish.
Yeah. But fortunately, I was able to bank them, for sick leaves. I said, well, I'll just put them there. But this year, my goal is to use all of my
Yes.
vacation and to use the CME time. And that was the thing, too. I felt like, I get 5 days where I can take to get my CME. And instead of taking those days, I'm like, well, I'll do this CME, at
No.
home on my free time versus taking that time and doing that. And so I think for women, especially, we have to realize that if we don't rest and we don't take care of ourselves, that affects how we perform, how productive we are.
Exactly. Exactly. You need that rejuvenation. I believe in taking a vacation. So I
Hmm.
try to do that every year because I need to rest so that I can come back even better.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
And once you do it, once you actually take that time off, even if you can't go anywhere, if you just stay home and do a staycation, but not a stay
Yes.
home and spring clean,
Just
because that's
work.
not a vacation. Once you do it, you realize how much you needed it. Another one is, and I think for a lot of people, this really hits home, is that if I earn more, then I'm selfish, or I
Yes.
can't out earn my partner or my father. And
Yes.
so that's something I think we don't talk about a lot, but for many women, that is a significant unconscious belief. And so these unconscious beliefs, they create invisible ceilings. And so if you grew up in a household where money was scarce, or maybe it's your parents arguing a lot about money, you may unconsciously sabotage your own earning ability so that you can stay in that familiar zone.
Wow. So you're saying self-sabotage is often self-protection?
Yes, yes, absolutely. The brain says, "Hey, stay small, stay safe. Let's stay small." We don't know how to handle
Wow.
that. We know how to handle, living paycheck to paycheck. Granny would say, "Robbing Peter to pay Paul." We know how to do that. But when we come to, having this abundance, that's
Yes.
scary because we don't know how to do that. So our brain says, "That's not for you. Just stay here in your lane."
Yes. So I actually see that playing out. I have a friend, she has a side hustle. She has been doing this for a few years, and everyone tells her how talented she is. But when it comes to sending out an invoice to her client, she freezes up. She's afraid to do
Mm.
that. She has given away a lot of money in free work because deep down she doesn't think that she's as good as everyone is telling her. She doesn't think that she has the capability to charge more because she's worth it. What would you say about that?
Michelle, that is so real and so common. And so, what's happening here is called worth suppression. It's like where you minimize your value to avoid perceived rejection. And
Wow.
I want to add something to that because, women are often conditioned to feel like their value lies in pleasing others. So when
Yep.
your friend says that she doesn't feel good enough, that's a signal for her to do some inner reparenting, which means basically we want her to go in and start finding ways to affirm her identity beyond what she produces. And I think that's just something that many of us have experienced. I know when I first started
Yes.
out, like negotiating a salary felt
Yes.
so scary to me because I was thinking like, oh, if I negotiate a salary, then if I ask for more, they might not want me. You know what I'm saying? They might think
Exactly.
the whole thing.
Exactly.
I felt like, to be a doctor was such a privilege that, I couldn't rock the boat and, and ask
Yes.
for more. So I remember being told by someone who was negotiating a salary, and he asked me what I was looking for, and I threw out a number, and he says, that is way too low. I would not feel right paying you
Oh
that and
wow.
added more. And that's when I realized I felt so I mean, I was grateful for him for doing that and saying, I have to give you at
Yes.
least that, but that's kind of turned that in my head that it's okay to ask for more,
Correct. Yes.
don't sell
Yeah, you
yourself
kind
short.
of feel embarrassed, that you ask for such little amount. And, I've
Mhm,
experienced that
absolutely.
myself, in my business, that's something I've also experienced. So, I'm glad that we're bringing this to the light so that you women out there who are listening, you know that you can afford to ask for more. You deserve it. You're worth more than you're even getting. So I'm happy that we're looking at this.
Absolutely. We are waking up.
Yes. So what I hear you saying though, Monique, is that invoice freezing is not about the numbers. It's about her self-concept. And can you explain how the inner reparenting would work?
Right. So when you talk about inner repair, obviously you can't go back and relive your childhood,
Yes,
So I
yes,
don't mean that. But one of the things is that oftentimes we get messages from our childhood that our parents passed on, right? And
yes,
so those messages, some of them are really good, some of them are not so good. So they
yes,
create this sort of gap in our self-esteem and our emotional well-being. So inner reparenting is just the process of nurturing and healing that inner child by you providing that emotional and support and understanding that you may have lacked in childhood. So what you want to do is develop a really compassionate way of addressing yourself to
yes,
heal those emotional wounds. So for instance, a friend who feels that she's really not worth what she charges, what I'm saying, you want to think about what you would say to a child if you were a parent in that situation.
yes,
A good parent would say, well, you know, little Michelle, look at all this praise that everybody has given you about the work that you've done. Look at how they've used the work that you've created to, produce other really good things. Look how many people keep coming back to you to have you redo this work. Look at
yeah.
how satisfied your clients are. So, yes, your work is worth it. That is
Wow.
how you talk to yourself. So, it's really about when you catch yourself in those negative money scripts, you stop and you say to yourself what a compassionate, healthy parent would have done.
Wow.
That's,
Yes. That's really good. That's really good.
yeah.
And I think I need to talk to myself like that. I need to do some inner reparenting.
Right, right. And it's really through self-care activities. We always talk about self-care. And of course, obviously there's the fun care of going and going to the spa and all that stuff. But a lot of
Yes.
self care is really just being compassionate to yourself,
Yes.
just
Yep.
really talking to yourself, that inner script. Oftentimes we have horrible inner scripts too, and we
I
say stuff to
know. I
ourselves that we would
know.
never say to anybody else. So it's about really just being providing yourself with that emotional support that you may or may not have received in childhood about a certain subject. So yeah, you can definitely use those techniques to allow yourself to start healing and making those changes. Because when you start talking positive to yourself, you're evoking positive emotions. And what happens is your brain goes, oh, we like that. So we'll start generating these positive thoughts, these positive scripts, and get rid of some of those more negative scripts that we've gotten. And so next thing you know, with over time, because it's a process, not going to happen overnight,
Yes.
but with time, you will change how you think and how you feel about money. And that will change your behaviors around money.
Yeah. So you're reinforcing the episode we had last week, which was the power of visualization and affirmations.
Hmm.
So, we just have to make sure that we're retraining our brain to do exactly what we want it to do. And you and your partner, Dr. Singletary, have shown us how we can retrain our brain. So I'm really happy that we're discussing this again tonight. So let's get practical.
Hmm.
Let's look at some of the boundaries that women can set to start reclaiming their financial worth.
Okay. Well, number one, let's start with some pricing boundaries. Set your rate and stick to it. Don't discount it unless it's an empowered decision. And so we don't want to discount out of fear. We want to discount if you've really done the research and you said, okay, well, this is what the going rate market price is. So maybe I need
Yes.
to come down a little bit, but don't come down because, oh my God, no one would ever pay me that. or I'm not
Yes.
worth that. So stick to it. Set that rate and stick to it.
Yeah, so I have to jump in here just for a
Mhm.
minute. And I'm a business owner, as you know, and I've done this too often. I've set my rate and changed my rate because somebody wants, reduced price. But I've found that over the years that the persons who I reduce the rate for, these are the persons who give me the most problems. They're the ones who pay me slow. They want
Mhm.
more than we agreed on to begin with. They call me too often. They take up my time, my energy. But I think I've gotten to the point, and we're still learning, but I've gotten to the point where I can spot them from far. As soon as I start relating to them, I can say, okay, this is going to be one of those clients. And so now I'm learning to give the price, and if they complain about the price, then I said, oh, okay, that's the price. Maybe they can't afford my services. So I'm learning, so I'm glad that you brought that one up.
Absolutely. Those people have the audacity. They're like
Exactly.
hagglers. They have no shame about haggling about a price and trying to get
Yes.
more for their money. So
Yes.
yeah, they definitely are. We've had that
Yes.
happen too in our private practice. We had that happen.
Yes.
The other one I want to bring up is time boundaries. And this is big for women because we do this a lot. Stop saying yes to unpaid labor, both emotional, because that's the big thing. Everybody's talking about emotional unpaid labor, but we
Yes.
also are going to say no to unpaid professional labor. And we know that happens all the
Ye-
time.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you again, but I need to know how to do this. So you need to help me, and I know that there are many women out there who also need some help. How do we stop saying yes to unpaid labor, both emotional and professional?
Right. Well, first we need to recognize that it is labor. That
Yes.
a lot of times we downplay what we do and what we give.
Yes.
And it goes back to that whole self worth thing.
Yes.
So, what you have to give, your time, your emotions, your physical or mental labor, it's labor and it should be compensated in some way. And so, one of the things to do is to have boundaries, and you need to practice saying no with a neutral energy. Just,
Yeah.
I'm not able to do that. That's it. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to get upset. You don't have to try to bargain or anything like that. Just, oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm
Yes.
not able to. I'm just not able to do it. You know, I'm gonna give you an example from my own personal life. When I was transitioning from working as an employed physician to
Yes.
doing more independent contractor work. This is several years ago, and I was contracting with the hospital. We were working through things. Everything seemed great, right? It seemed like a
Yes.
dream job. And they send me the letter of intent where they kind of lay out kind of what they're going to put in the contract. And so I'm reading through,
Yes.
and I see there that they've got me taking call for the entire hospital on the weekends,
Wow.
and there's no mention about what that price would be. What the
Yes.
fee is. So I call the CEO, who I was negotiating with, to say, "Hey, I don't see that on there. We need to put that on there." And he was like,
Yes.
"Oh, well, this is a really big opportunity for you to make a lot of money, so we don't pay for that." And
Wow.
I was like, well, everybody pays for that, even at some place,
Exactly.
because it's work, I'm like, you're not just going to
Yes.
call, I'm not just getting called about my own patients. No, everybody's patients.
No.
I
No.
held my guns, and he got really angry with me. And he's going back and forth and back and forth. And I just said, nope, fine, I'm done. I'm not doing it.
Yes.
Afterwards, I was like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? Because like that was really great. And I started arguing back and forth. Oh, you could have done it.
Yes.
You do it all the time. What's a little bit? But I wanted something, because what it was him saying, I'm not going to give you anything. It was very insulting. It was him saying that my time on the
Yes.
weekends,
Was not worth
was
anything.
not,
Yes.
yeah. And so I'm so glad I didn't do that. And of course, the next job, I got called like 2 days later from like their sister facility. And the CEO there was like, oh, I heard that you're available. We want to offer you this position. And then he says, oh, and by the way, we do pay for on call services. So it was obviously that had gotten out. I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay.
They knew how to deal with you.
Yes, because me setting that boundary, and I've not had any more problems with that. So you've got to set
Exactly.
that boundary, and you can do it.
Yes.
Let's talk about relational boundaries. And this happens a lot, especially if you come from a family where your parents didn't have much, and maybe you're the person who's made it. You're the person who's the big earner now.
Yes.
Do not loan your money out of guilt.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm a big believer. I feel like, and I'm someone who's been blessed with a really, really good family,
Yes.
So I do believe that as families, we have to support each other. If somebody's going to college and they need some help with some books,
Yes.
then they can call Aunt Boogie, that's what they call me, and I'm going to help. But I think you also have to have boundaries with your family, and you have to have
Yes.
financial clarity about what you can do and what you're not going to do.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times first of all, there are some people who don't come from families like mine, and they have people who believe that they have to
Correct.
fight someone
Yes.
else's money.
Your money is their money.
Exactly. So if you don't have money to give to them that you're never going to see back, then there you get hit
Yes.
with the guilt. Oh, you think you're better than me. Oh,
Yes.
you've been so blessed that you don't want to bless others. All those
Yes.
things that they use to guilt you into opening your wallet. No, we're going to stop doing that. We're going to set boundaries with our family. You're going to look at your money and you're going to say, okay, what can I give, that I'm comfortable with, that's not going to harm my financial well being and my
Yes.
financial goals, my wealth building. And depending on the circumstances and who these people are, your amount may be zero. And it
Correct.
may be that you have all the money in the world that you could give them and it wouldn't harm you a bit, but you don't want to for whatever
Yes.
reason it is. That's okay. Do not loan out your money out of guilt.
Yeah.
Have your boundaries with your family, your financial boundaries, and have clarity. If you expect to be paid back, tell them I expect to be paid back, and this is when I
Yes.
expect to be paid back, and this is the terms. And if they don't pay you back, then we call that bought cents. They didn't pay you back, so they get no more money. They get no more
Yep.
money. And if they bring it up, say, well, you never paid me back the money that I loaned you. So I just don't have it, you know,
Yes.
you didn't pay me back, so I don't have it.
Or maybe have them sign an agreement so at least it's in writing.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
And just practice saying no with neutral energy. I'm not able to do that. Full stop. Or just no. I can't do it. No is a complete sentence. You just have
I've
to, it's
heard
hard,
that.
but it's true. It is. And you got to practice saying it.
So I learned that from a friend a lot of years ago. And I was talking to him, and he said, I don't understand women. And then he started talking about his wife. And he said, she cannot just say no. If she cannot do something to someone, she sends a whole explanation why. He said, no, why are you telling people your business that you have a doctor's appointment or you are sick or your child is sick? There's no need to do that. And I started doing that. I started just saying no. As you said, no is a complete sentence. There's no need to explain anything. So I like that.
Right. It's true. It's like we start off with, I can't do it for this reason, that reason. Because the more reasons you give people as why you can't do something, they will come up with solutions to try to help you work around that
Exactly.
so you can do what they want you to do. So give them no ammo.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. That's so true. Yeah. And align with that. If you've been giving in and you've been loaning money out of guilt and you've been doing unpaid labor out of guilt, you're not going to change overnight. This is some
Yes.
saying no is going to be hard for you. And so one of the things that you can do is prepare yourself for that. And so prepare scripts for hard conversations, that
Yes.
helps you, that practice. Because first of all, a lot of times we have a lot of anxiety behind it. Saying no for many of us causes anxiety, causes us to like, oh, well, what if this person
Yes.
gets mad at me? They're not going to speak to me, all this stuff. Your brain starts going a little haywire. So when you
Yeah.
prepare a script for yourself for that hard conversation, your brain gets to practice that. So those feelings, all that comes up, but you prepare the script, you practice your script. So then when you actually have that conversation, your brain's used to that. You've already kind of prepped your brain for that. So you're going to have less
Yes.
anxiety when you do it. You'll still have some, but it's not going to be that initial, oh my God, oh my God. And then you'll have your answers already ready, that's just like, I'd love to support you, but I have to honor my financial commitments right now. You know,
Very good.
simple, or just no, I'm
Yes.
not able to do that. you know, that's
Yes.
good
Yes.
too.
Yes. So the boundaries are about knowing that you have nothing to prove. You don't have to prove anything to anyone.
Exactly. We don't set boundaries for other people. We set boundaries for ourselves, you know? So
Yes.
knowing that, I don't have to make these other people okay with how I spend my money.
Exactly. Yes. And I don't say I don't have it. I say I don't have it to lend.
Yes, I love that. I
Yes.
love that because they
Yes.
know you have it.
Yes.
Because they say, "Wait a second,
Exactly.
no, you come in there with
I
that new
don't.
purse."
Yeah, I don't
Right.
have it to lend because it's not part of my financial goal. And if I
Mhm.
lend it out, then my goals are not going to be met. So yeah.
Love that.
So let's close. This has been good. So let's close with a personal challenge for our listeners.
Mhm.
What is one thing that our listener can do this week to walk in financial self worth?
Okay. Let's challenge ourselves to make one brave ask. So, whether it's sending an invoice, raising your rates, or setting a new boundary, do one thing that affirms your value and follow it with some truth telling. Write down how it felt, what story tried to hold you back, and then reframe it. When we do that work, that's really how the transformation begins.
Wow, wow. This is powerful, ladies. I hope that you have been listening. I hope you've been making notes and that this conversation is affirming, healing, and activating. So I thank you so much, Dr. Upton, for laying this out for our listeners today. And I hope that they find value in what you've said because I find so much value in it.
Oh,
And I
thank
know
you.
that I'm going to continue practicing some of these and then I'm going to start doing some of the things that you've laid out here today. So thank you so much. Now, for our listeners, remember that your worth is not defined by your paycheck. It's not defined by your past, nor your performance. You're worthy by design. Remember that you deserve financial freedom, and this is what we're talking about. And it's not because you earn it, but because it aligns with who you truly are. So, if this episode spoke to you, please share it with a friend and leave us a review. Every message you send help other women rise in their power. So please, leave us a review, leave us a comment. Look for us on Instagram at underscore financial flourish and also at absoluteaccountingcpa.com/financial flourish. Give us your reflections, give us your thoughts. We're looking forward to hearing from you. And also connect with our wonderful doctors on Instagram at telepsych and their website on www.upsingtelepsychiatry.com. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you as we get close to the end of this money mindset reboot season. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and hoping that this is actually adding value to your life. We received a DM from one of our listeners, and she said that she heard about Financial Flourish and she's so happy because it's speaking to her directly into what she wants to do with her life right now. So there are many people who are being helped with this podcast, and we encourage you to go on Spotify and subscribe to the podcast and also follow us on Instagram because we have more information coming your way. So until next time, increase your faith, increase your finances, increase your freedom as your self-worth and your wealth collide. And I encourage you to take one more step toward your financial goal and don't forget to flourish.